patient with me. I'm a knothead. So busy. Some days I'm so busy, it's like, oh, will I get it done? But now they let me hire a coordinator and I find, oh. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Racing Magpie's Winter Camp session with emerging artist Joelle Follows the Road. Or technical difficult. I turned that down. Okay, I'm ready. All right. Sorry about that. Technical difficulties, everyone. Emerging artist Joelle Follows the Road here. She just had a piece at the Oyate Health Center's new building sold. But first, let me back up. So about Racing Magpie's Winter Camp series. So it takes the concept of our ancestors during wintertime. That was our storytelling. But in those storytelling ways, or stories, there were always life lessons that our youth took with them. And that was our way of our ancestors telling our history, but yet incorporating our values and the life lessons into those stories. So Winter Camp series is about that. And it's about being a good relative and incorporating how Lakota, Dakota, Nakota people interact with the universe around them as the grass, the roots grow, then the grass grow, and everything flourishes. So that's the community-based model that our ancestors had. And part of these series, when we're talking about art, culture, language, education, that's the model that we look to, is what our ancestors had before us. So those of you who have been kind of following this year, so I had the opportunity to facilitate this winter camp series. So I've been kind of focusing on emerging artists and the up and coming knowledge keepers and culture bearers because of the impact that the pandemic had on our Native communities. You know, it took a lot of our culture bearers, a lot of our knowledge keepers, and part of that had to do with a lot of art and our cultural arts, whether it's traditional or contemporary or a mix of both. So Joelle is the artist for this weekend, and she is master porcupine quill artist. Some of these are a lot of her pieces. So here's Joelle. She's enrolled in Standing Rock, but grew up in Pine Ridge. Yes. If you want to introduce yourself.
My name is Joelle Follows the Road. I am originally from the outside of Oglala area, as it was a place that my brother said was called Spotted Elk's Camp. I am a descendant of Spotted Elk through our Bigfoot, Chief Bigfoot, through my maternal grandmother, who's Alice Weasel Bear-Chief Eagle. And so that's my lineage right there. And and then we moved, and I became enrolled on Standing Rock. So
all right.
That was like my entire maternal family is Oglala Pine Ridge area. So
we're all related,
yeah,
in one way or another. So I first came upon Joelle's artwork, I think it was at the Doll, when the very first Native American or Indian art market.
Yes.
Was that one that the Tubos family put on?
Yes.
So they had this Indian art market coming out of the pandemic. And I just happened to be walking by, and I backed up. I was like, oh my God, did you make these? And she said, yes. I was like, oh. Those of you who know me know that once upon a time, I was a quillwork artist when I was young. My eyes can't do it anymore. But yeah, these amazing pieces. So I named your show Woihanble na iwahanble, means I dreamed a dream. And because once I start getting to know Joelle and asking about her creative process and her artistic journey, you know, it's just pretty inspiring. So I just would like you to share that with our viewers on when you got into art, how old you were, and then what really pushed you into this cultural medium.
Let's see, I was about around 10, 11 when I first saw my uncle. He was beadworking. And at that time I didn't know, you know, you don't know. Sometimes you just don't know. And but I saw him beadworking, and the way he did it, you know what I mean? It was just like, I don't know. From seeing him from the back and how he would string everything up and pull it through, to me, it was like a cellist, I'm gonna have to say. Anyway, and then from there, he's the one that, his name was Joan Chief Eagle. And he was the one who really opened up my mind to art, or really opened that door for me. And as the years progressed and such, you know, just I really don't want to say, you know, my idol or anything like that, but I just had such a huge respect for him. In all, well, mainly because he was my uncle, and he was always good to me. But just seeing his artwork and, you know, wondering how he did that, and, you know, because when the first time you see beads on something, you know,
On a string,
you're just, yeah, fascinated by it because of how, you know, how they string it through and tack it down, and, you know, it becomes this wonderful piece of art. And anywho, he's the one that got me into art, and I started out with sketching, you know, just drawing here and there, and entering art shows throughout high school and such. And but I wanted to do more, you know, just a little bit more. And as I got older, you know, teenage years take over and such, and you kind of lose that connection. But it came back even more so about 2014, 2015, when I thought, you know what? Because my mother had given me this tackle box, and it had all his old beads and stuff in there. So I have a lot of antique beads. And she said, yeah, maybe you can do something with this. Otherwise, you know, it's good in storage. And so I opened it up, and just seeing all of his things, because he was a doll maker. He created these really, really beautiful,
like the old
dolls.
traditional dolls.
Yeah,
Really,
and
nice. And do the regalia.
Yeah, everything. And it was just, I mean, the tiniest of beads. I mean, it was just that.
I think they used like 15s.
They were so small.
That's like smaller than the 13s.
Yeah,
yeah. Just from what I know of them, you know, they use the 15s or higher.
Yes, and it just, you know, seeing all of these things, and it was just like, okay, I had to do this. I'm going to do this. So I started out with beading, and that would be, you know.
You want to grab that one and pull it closer? Oh my gosh. So this piece is made with 13 cut beads. And those of you who don't bead or don't have a lot of knowledge about beads, the higher the bead number is, the smaller the bead is. So we were just talking about, you know, size 15 beads, that's even smaller. 13s are pretty small. And cut beads, they're called cut beads because they're made out of glass. And they're cut, some of them are cut at a different angle. So it creates this sparkle. And cut beads are nice. They're expensive nowadays, but they're nice. As of everything, the cost of being an artist seems to be going up when you just want to create. Nice. And then she has another piece. And Joelle is a local artist here. She lives in Rapid City. She did have a showing at the Emerging Art Gallery over there at the Doll. And for those of you that do bead, oh, look, you can just imagine the time that went into it too. All these, this one's buffalo. And these are purses. For those of you that don't know, they're bags. They might just look, but so they are pieces of artwork, but they are functional too, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some of the newer ones, this was, I think 2018, 2019.
2018, 2019. So when I hit the lottery, and there will be signs, I will have a different Joelle Follows the Road purse every day. I won't tell anybody, but there will be signs. Okay, so you started out with beadwork and then
Beadwork, yes, and then later on down the road, I became interested in quill working.
and let's back up to the bead. So who taught you how to bead? Or did you just from watching your
from
uncle? Or?
watching my uncle and watching my mom? My mom used to make moccasins and stuff. So I would, just use have a lot of questions for her. Points of reference would be from my mother and stuff like that. So,
and this is applique, which is straight stitch, which is even a little harder than lazy stitch. Just to point that out for you guys, like that's a lot of straight stitch, and applique is a lot of, it's time consuming.
yes, it is.
But so I'm assuming, just as an artist myself, so the patience and the dedication and the self-discipline that it takes to work with 13 cut beads and then going into quillwork. So how did you?
So Quillwork, I didn't even know how to even get started on it. So,
But you had this passion,
wanting to know,
drive.
just wanting to know how to do. How is it done? Where do you get the quills from? Is there a special way of doing it? All of these questions. So I thought, okay, wait, because once I get started on something, I'm just all over the place with it. So what I did was I actually took a magnifying glass, and I went out to Crazy Horse and different museums and stuff, and just took a magnifying glass and just kind of looked, to see how the quill laid. So that's how when I would go home and mimic it or try it, that's how I learned. So
you're totally self-taught.
yes, I had to go I had to
Man, that's even, that just blew my mind, Joelle. Because before the show even started, I was telling Joelle that I had the opportunity, once I decided I wanted to work with Porcupine quills, more, move from beading as a young girl. And then my teenage years, I really wanted to work with Porcupine quills. Just so happens, Christine Red Cloud was the artist in residence at Lakota Museum. So I sought her out and I asked her, how to do it. And that summer I would work, because I lived in Chamberlain. So I work at Dairy Queen and I'd book it over, and it was way across town. I didn't have a car. My parents were poor too. So I walk all the way over to Lakota Museum and take that time. And I apprenticed under her for that whole summer while she was doing artist in residence. So and she, it was a really, but I had that opportunity of someone showing me and answering my questions, and to hear you say, you taught yourself, just blew my mind.
I mean, we had I never saw my uncle do quill work, but he did quill work. I only saw him do the beadwork. But we had a relative, apparently, long time ago, who did quill work. I think it was my maternal grandfather's mother who did quill work, and her name was Ta Chunku Washtewi, her Goodwill woman, and she did quill work. And we had another relative, I think her name was Sakdewi, Killed a Crow woman, and she did quill work. Nice. So, I mean,
so in all those, your blood,
somewhere it's
yeah.
in there, but you know, like you said, I didn't have that person, I didn't have anybody to like, okay, this is how it goes, this is how you're gonna do it and stuff like that. I had to take my magnifying, guys have my magnifying test too. So I had to take it and really look, you know, and you know, later on down the road, like finding out how to dye the quills and such. I prefer the natural quill. I don't know why,
Yeah.
but minimal color for me is good.
So it's more of the traditional.
Yeah. See,
Colors.
and that's one thing. Remember when I got to see you when you stopped in for my show, and you were talking about, I think it was something along the lines of something that a grandmother would make.
Mhm.
And I was like, you know, she's right. She's if you look at how my Quillwork looks, it's all old looking.
Yeah, it has that like it was
So-
made back in the day. That's cool. But then you have all these traditional elements. I like the mix. For me as an artist, I really like the mix of traditional and contemporary.
Yeah.
And but your stuff has a lot of traditional materials to it. You know, you have your felt, you have, you know, your more natural quills there, and you have your abalone shells, and it's just I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan, and to hear you say that. So those of you who don't know the history behind Porcupine Quillwork is when I was taught and told that back in our ancestors' day, and it's for me, it was probably fitting back then because I am an identical twin. So back in our ancestors' day was the identical twins who were taught to be the quill workers,
Mhm.
the quill work artists, and there were women's societies. Then they would teach each other how to do this type of it. I would say embroidery for our people. That's what Porcupine Quillwork was. And each family had their own designs, and each band had their own designs. So that's if you went to visit other, like I'm Dakota, if I went to a Lakota band and visited, they could tell what community I was from by my design. Yep. Because so like Dakotas, we do our traditional is more florals with geometric borders because we were by the rivers. And Lakotas were geometric. Yeah, and Nakotas are all floral. They don't have geometric designs in their traditional designs. And that was just had to do with location, geographic, what was available to us in our natural universe, our natural habitat. Yep. So in the old time, and the way they would dye the quills, you didn't see back then, you didn't see bright colors like now. Unless they were like purples and pinks because of the berries. Yep. And for the yellows, you would do wild onions. You ground them up, you know, in those berry pounders, those stone, you grind it up to a powder. And while your water's boiling, then you put your natural elements in the water while it's boiling. That's the old way how they did it. But now you have all these other colors with contemporary resources that we have now, you know, but you know, someday maybe someone could think of a class to do the more traditional, going out in nature and finding your materials that you think would work as dyes, and then doing the whole process. But before we went live, Joelle and I were kind of talking about like the about Porcupine, and I just talked about how it's in the universe, in our natural habitat where we are geographically. So I live in Montana now, and we were talking about, she was asking me if it was more in abundance up in Montana because of the mountains, and there's a lot of porcupines there. But I was telling her no, because there's actually not a lot of porcupine quillwork artists up there. It's not making a revitalization like it is down here, you know. And for me, even when I was younger, there wasn't as much quillwork artists as there is now. So for me, it's pretty cool to see more of our people pick up this traditional art form, because it does take a lot of patience, self-discipline. It's hard not to get frustrated sometimes, especially when you've gone a long ways in your artwork and then your quills start breaking. It's like,
Yeah,
oh,
that's one thing that I'm like really afraid of. See, when I first started, I didn't have that person to tell me that, when you lay your quill out, you're supposed to flatten them.
Yep.
Mine were a little bit puffy, and I was
Mhm.
like,
Yeah.
there's so many things that I wasn't taught prior to, learning how to, you gotta press down on them and get all that air out of them so that
Mhm.
they're flat and that they'll stay.
Yeah.
So
I was taught by Kushi, Kushi Unchi. So when she taught me, you keep them in your mouth. You set out your color, but you keep them in your mouth to dampen them, because now it's kind of morphed in where you lay them down on paper towels. But see, if they are too damp, that's when they start breaking.
Yeah,
If you have them on the paper towels and you're spraying them with water, sometimes you get too absorbed into the actual doing of it that you forget how. To me, sometimes I forget how much moisture I added it, and then the longer they sit there, the more moisture they get on them. They start. You don't want them too. Yep, you don't want them too hard, and you don't want them too soft.
Yeah,
because they break both
yes.
extremes.
Yeah.
But I was taught that. That's why it just blows my mind that your problem solving skill. And if we think back to our ancestors' days, that's the functionality plus the artwork, but that's what it taught, how to problem solve.
Yeah.
And with you, you are an example of that. And so how did you figure out how did you learn that you had to flatten them?
How did I learn
Did
after
you just
seeing? I did this. I started out with this bag that I had, and I was I noticed that they were, the quills were raised. So it's kind of like, a cave.
Don't say that you were learning. That's why it's just the dedication to I'm assuming, because I'm an artist too, like you have these designs in your mind and you
Something
have to
just
get them
clicks,
out. Yep.
Okay. I ended up.
Yeah. So like I had the resources to call someone and reach out and be like, hey, I can't do this. How
would you do it?
Yep.
Yeah.
And you didn't have that.
No. So that's what I did. And I took the back of my scissors and I just rubbed it on there, and I noticed, like, hey, okay. And then I went further, along the line. So now I have to make sure that is one of the first things that I do after I finish, a pattern, finish a design. I'll have to smash it down like that and make sure that it stays.
Well, nowadays, the more contemporary artists just cut the tips and flatten them. But to me, I really use the tips, the techniques that I was taught, especially in the wrapping technique, that you need your ends to wrap them and then wrap around. But these new age, the up and coming artists kind of they're more efficient in their thinking skills. So now, I've seen where they just put them in a paper towel and they snip the end, one end, not both ends, or some of them put them down and snip the ends, probably to make them more uniform too.
This one I actually
it kind of goes to art has to evolve too.
Yeah.
And be more efficient.
So this is the one that I actually went through and cut on both ends.
On this one?
Yeah, both the sharp end and the part. I forget what it's called. The part that comes out of the porcupine, not the barbed part. But anyway, I cut both.
The foamy stuff.
Yeah,
I forgot what it's called too.
I squeeze all of that stuff out of there until it becomes hollow. And then that's when I really have to start laying down my porcupine, laying down the quills and stuff. Otherwise, they get too dry. They'll just
they'll hollow out too.
Yeah. So that's one of the ones that I did that when I cut both ends, flattened it out and just.
Nice. Okay, so I'm just gonna get in deeper into my questions because it just blows my mind that you taught yourself all of it. So
Yeah, I didn't
how
have any.
how did you when you got your quills, did you teach yourself how to wash them, sort them?
Yes, all right up to the dyeing process, all of that, and you know how they get stuck to your hands like that. And you're like, "Oh." So, after like washing with
Mhm.
really hot water, because in my mind I thought, okay, wait, I better
They
get all
need to
this
be
grease
clean.
off. Yeah. And then that's when they curled up, and I lost a lot of porcupine quills like that. So, you kind of lukewarm water type dish soap, wash it off. I use dish soap. Some people use detergent.
Yeah. For out there, those of you who ever want to learn how to quill, I encourage you to. But if you're a self-taught artist like Joelle, here is an inside artist. Don't use hot water or cold water. You want to use lukewarm water. Dawn dish soap works the best.
Yeah.
Do not use bleach.
No,
Bleach
never
will
bleach.
bleach will hollow them out. You think with the bleach, it's gonna get the quills whiter, which it does, but it's gonna hollow them out. And once those quills are hollowed out, they're useless. And it's hard to get porcupine
And
quills.
it's
Like
just, yeah.
when you buy them, they're so expensive. And when you do buy them, they're not uniform. If you have access to a porcupine, it's better to just get the quills. And there's different ways to get the quills. I was telling Joelle a little bit history about my journey when I was a quillwork artist, how my ex would, my mother-in-law was a quillwork artist too, over in Lord Brew, and I was on the other side of the river in Crow Creek. But we would have orders that needed to be filled, and we needed a lot of quills.
Mhm.
So he would trap them, and then her and I would skin them on her kitchen table with utility knives. She's the one, Pearl Cologne. She passed away, COVID took her, but she taught me how to skin porcupine quills. And the very first time I was throwing up, because soon as you make that first cut, the muskiness is so overpowering. It's worse than a skunk, or just as bad. I don't know which. And it just instantly, I started throwing up.
Yeah.
But it had to be done. I wanted them quills, and I committed to helping her. So we were butchering it, and she's like, "You smell that?" And I was like, "Oh my God, yes." And I was throwing up, right? She's like, "Smells like money." So then she taught me how to cure them and salt them and, hang them on her clothesline. I was telling the ladies here at Racing Magpie, I said, those of you who know and over the years drove by Pearl's house, it wasn't uncommon to see porcupine hanging from her clothesline there. And then she would use the hair and the claws and everything. But see, with our artwork, we used different quills. So I used the long ones because for me, it was more time efficient. She used the shorter, fat ones. But if you butcher or the porcupine, the quills I used were long, kind of like the side, not really, it was in between the bottom and the top, so like the sides. Yeah. And then the ones she used were either on the top or the bottom. So it just worked out cool. But with porcupine quills, there's different techniques where you need the different quills. So the long, thin ones are for wrapping, or if you want to, they call it plating, where you're sewing it down. And then the short, thick ones are actually, the weaving is good with the long, but when you do the plating, like to make moccasins, or if you want to sew on, either 2 needle, I prefer the 2 needle, is the fat ones, the short fat ones work pretty good with that. Like if you're making moccasins or a bigger surface. And then the long, thin ones are also good for weaving and wrapping. And I don't know if the embroidery style, remember one of your bags I saw you did old time embroidery style, and that was probably the first time outside of a museum that I saw that, where it's just with one quill and you have it down one of your bags.
I don't know, I'm pretty sure.
I caught that in your show, I think, when you had it at the Emerging Art Gallery, but that was probably in a really, really long time that I saw that technique. So you taught yourself all the techniques too? Did you watch it on YouTube?
Some of them I did.
Can't remember which
Some of them I
first.
did.
It was one of the ones we had at the doll where, so it looks like embroidery. Those of you who want to get into co-working or know co-working, that there are different techniques to kind of achieve the design that you want. Oh, that one's nice. Yeah. Oh, man. Wow. Wow. I wish some people would have came in person. You guys are missing out to see the and the thing is on the back of her purses too. There's, you know, more traditional elements to it with contemporary. She uses a lot of traditional materials, but in a contemporary design. This one's all outtooth on the back. Geez, I wish I would have got my taxes. I could have bought that. Oh, these.
That's the older sister.
Yeah, this one has dentillion shells. Oh, wow, Joelle, you're just blowing my mind. So, like for me, if I have a design stuck in my head, I have to draw it out.
And that's the younger sister.
The younger, this one's the older sister?
Yes, because of the quill work.
Oh, yeah.
And the beadwork on the other one.
This one's the younger, and it has sinew dragonflies on the back. Cut. Wow.
And this one was just a little playful one. It's called BIA 41.
BIA Route 41. Even the material reminds me of, like, you know, the old kushis and unchis that would just wear cloth dresses.
Yeah.
That's what the material. I never saw my great grandmother with, the few times I saw her with pants would be in the wintertime under her dress. And her
Yeah.
apron over, you know,
The
she had,
polyester pants.
yeah, but she'd wear it under her dress.
Yeah.
And her dresses would all be, she would make them and then her aprons over. Nice. So when you got into co-work and you start learning your techniques and you figured it out, did you even know that there were different techniques or just?
I just
did
went
it,
through
huh?
until later on when I forget what you had mentioned something along the lines of weaving, right?
That's
That
just
would,
back and forth. Yep,
yeah.
the weaving.
And see,
And
I
it
called
creates
it,
that crisscross or zigzag.
yeah, that's what I thought it was called, was zigzag.
Mhm.
See, so when you told me it was weaving, or you brought it up, you know, weaving, I was like, well, I guess it is weaving.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, it is
So
weaving.
you see a lot of it
Mhm.
looks like a zigzag.
So do you
but
use two needle?
No,
Or
just
one?
one.
Just one. Wow. One needle takes more, oh, how do I say it? Skill. One needle takes more skill because I use two needles because it's just blowing my mind that you taught yourself, you problem solved. And a lot of people who don't know this, but you know how not Westerners and and Europeaners used to think our people were dumb, you know, that we didn't. But when you look at our ancestors' work, even now too, like there's so much math that go, like now me, when I bead, I have, you know, my ruler and my protractor and all that are vital tools. But you think back then, they didn't have that. And there's so
Right.
much
and it's so-
symmetry.
yeah, and it's very precise, very tedious looking back then, you know what I
And
mean?
they didn't have a ruler. So
No.
it's like, wow, our ancestors were so smart. And it's just, you know, and they didn't think we were, but wow. But I think, so with your artwork, what I really like when I sit down and start doing mine and I get stumped. but I don't get frustrated, but I want to figure it out because I want that particular technique in my design.
Mhm.
So, and then when it finally comes out, it's just like, oh my God, I figured it out.
Yeah, you have a lot of wow moments.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, I have a lot of wow moments knowing because to me, I know the work and the skill that it takes, and I'm just, my mind is blowing, people. You have to see her stuff in person just to, Clementine, just to like, it's wow. So how long, like this piece, how long did it take you to create this piece?
This is, this took me, let's see, we had gone on vacation last summer. I actually finished this at my girls' dad's place. So it must have taken me about 3 weeks total on and off just to get all the quills and everything in there. And this is just something that I came up with after like the June 25th.
Oh, after Victory Day.
Yeah. So that's what got me started with this one. And I kept taking my time on it. And my quills, they kept breaking in this area. So I thought, okay, well, what are you gonna do, Joelle? What are you gonna do? And then I saw pieces of fabric just laying there. So I was like, okay, so let's try it. And then I went ahead and started just quilling them in there.
So I'm gonna try to get there is fabric interwoven with these quills. Like, to me, that's like a new thing. Like that's, man, the artistry, Joelle. You're one of my faves.
Thank you.
And I'm not just saying that because I want to beg at a discount. I will pay full price one of these days. One of these days, I am going to own. Yeah, payment plan. Yeah,
Yeah,
nice.
this one, I don't know. I'm just really proud of this one, this headdress bag, because it's such a, yeah, it's like really original.
Wow. Okay,
Yeah.
can I? Yeah. Hold it. So on the back of this piece too what are these bone?
Those are they whitetail? Whitetail.
Antler. Antler. Wow. We were gonna have Joelle's partner come up here and be Vanna White, but he didn't want to. So I'm being Vanna White.
So he got one of those cutters,
Uh-huh.
circular saw thingies, and he actually cut those down for me. So.
Aw. So when she's making these, does she just completely ignore you and not talk for? Leave me alone, I'm creating. So this bag took you how long?
It took me, what was my duration up there? About a week.
That only took you a week?
A week plus a couple of days, just because I had to. Okay, so here's the thing, when you're quill working, it looks like it's super easy because you go so far and you wrap, you go so far you wrap, but there's also the physical aspect of it.
Yep.
I noticed that I was getting like this bump on the back of my neck from being hunched over a lot and stuff. So I had to like take my time, rest a day or two.
From getting
Yeah.
pulled.
Yes. So
Yeah.
I actually got filling back in this one not too long ago. So.
I used to be like that when because my lips would go numb after a while when the tips,
Yeah.
if I wasn't being careful.
Yes.
Still it happens,
So
I get like that when I beat it. Like a few times I pulled all-nighters just because I had to get some stuff done for a booth.
I miss doing the all-nighters, but it doesn't happen for me anymore.
But when I don't think about it and I just do it, like cool stuff.
Yeah.
I'm like, what?
All kinds of things. Yeah, all these ideas and it's like,
Yeah.
So. But Yeah, this took me a while, and I'm actually very, very proud of it because
You should be proud that all of them, like, I'm just, the artistry. I keep going back to the creativity, the artistry, the skill. Like, a lot of people think there's no skill, but there is, just even on the back, I keep looking at this bag because on the back, it's all symmetrical elk teeth, like the time to measure all that out first before you even think about sewing those elk teeth on. And then the brass sequin, like the thing with our people too, our ancestors, everything was so symmetrical and, math. And I think back to, wow, what did they use? And then I was thinking, well, maybe they used like sinew, like would just mark it, and the time and patience it would take for that as well. Near dentilians are getting harder to find too, because the harvesting is going down on that. Well, let me see if anything's in the chat. So if you have any questions, I have all kinds of questions. I feel like an hour's not even enough. Oh, we do. Yep. That one's cool too. This one kind of reminds me of like the Northwest coast.
My mom said a long time ago, on her dad's side, they had a relative, a female, one of his female relatives or such used to wear these hats.
Ooh, the coastal tribes wear hats that it's woven.
Yeah, and
and not with thread, with like plants.
Yeah, so that kind of inspired me as far as the Salish kootenai.
Yep. What Salish are the ones that have the fish, because they're actually a more, and I only know that because my nephew is Salish and I have friends that up there. So Salish are more of the Pondere. They were Northwest coastal and got pushed inland.
Yeah.
The Kootenai were actually, they were enemies back in the day. The government stuck them on the same land. So the Kootenai designs are way different than the Salish, but the Salish are coastal. Their artwork is awesome too. Well, all our tribes' artwork is, it's just cool. And then I'm just blown away that you taught yourself that. So I have so many questions for you, Joelle. It's like, do you enter art shows or have you just started?
I just started. I mean, not too long ago. It was more of a confidence kind of thing, you know what I mean? Because you put your artwork out there and people will look at it, and just kind of turn away and stuff like that. And then
you're so sensitive to me. I'm like, they're my babies. Like, I made that.
Yeah. So that was one of the things that kind of kept me from like putting my stuff out there, because I took so much pride in what I do, you know what I mean? And it's just to have somebody just turn away from it. It's like, well, it's okay. You know what I mean?
Not me. I think I just glanced and I went like that. I walked over to you and I was like, what? Like, wow, it's amazing. Even just like every little detail. So when you see, like, now to me, you're finally kind of getting the acknowledgement of your craftsmanship. How does that feel? You got a piece that was bought and is going to be shown at the new Oyate.
Yeah, I wish I had the picture of that. That's actually on the thingy.
Okay. And did you win an award down at Red Cloud Art Show?
I did for
you forgot.
It was called 2020 Essentially. It's actually a part of their private collection. So
nice.
Yeah. And I also had a smaller bag. This is called Modern Butterfly 2. There was a smaller bag that was sold down there at the art show to a private collector, and it was called Modern Butterfly. So it's their it's out there floating around somewhere.
I'm gonna put this out there for people that I am very disappointed that Rapid City Arts Council did not buy some of your artwork for their permanent collection when you were showing at the emerging artists. Like, that's such a missed out opportunity. So yeah, let them know.
Yeah.
I just want, because I think any museum, fine arts gallery that acquires any of your pieces, like these, someday your pieces are going to be in museums, Joelle. Like,
That's my kind of like a goal, you know.
or the Journey Museum could do a show on you too at their Indian arts and craft. I'm just saying, Rapid City, step it up when it comes to your native indigenous community artists.
Yeah.
And I can say that because I live out of state now. And I in my program, in my position that I'm working with now, like, it is on a broader level and it's national. So I really commend the organization that I'm working with now on kind of moving that direction. All the organizations and all spaces that can provide more opportunities to our native artists, you know.
Yeah.
Like, geez, it's so nice. It's so, like I said, when I win the lottery, I'm putting that out there. I'm manifesting that when I win the lottery, there will be signs. Have a Joelle Follows the Road piece. So we have a comment from Andrea Leckberg. She said, it's inspiring to see an understanding of materials, techniques, and personal history. The work is strong, and you only get stronger the more you tell your story. She is a fan. Well, it's pretty strong right now. Like, I'm amazed to see with what you have coming up. And I understand, like, with your confidence, as I think we all go through that as an artist, because we're so sensitive to our work, you know. I keep forgetting my phone's the audio. We're so sensitive, you know, because we do take a lot of pride in it is evident in here, in all your work, how the self motivation, the discipline, you know, like, it does take a lot of people. I don't think the outside world or more Western thought artists understand when indigenous people work with the cultural mediums, that it's a lot of perseverance too. You get frustrated. But I always think about, in a way, when I do work, I think of, wow, I'm thinking of my people and I'm thinking of my tribe. And that's kind of my motivation to get me through. During Heisapa, I was working on a big old order and a needle went through underneath my thumb and came out this way, the bottom. I was like, oh my God. And it swelled up like so thick. And I still had to finish my order, you know, because that it had to be done. And
I had one go through right here.
Did you?
Yeah.
A quill?
No.
A needle?
A needle when I was beading.
When they break?
Like I use a lot of felt.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, whenever you have more than one piece of felt, how you have to push it through. That's what happened to me one night. And I think it was an all-nighter that I was trying to do. I pulled pulled a needle through like that. And
Just
I wasn't,
fast?
and it just went right through.
Okay, so I'm here to offer any kind of knowledge I have to help you in your, what kind of needle do you use?
Sometimes I'll use a leather needle just to get through, because that's 4 pieces of felt that I use.
You know what you can use? So they're called owls. You know, that our ancestors used, but the more contemporary ones are like sharpened metal with a wooden. And even if you go in and you use a pencil and just draw in all your little holes, and that owl, you can just poke right through. And then it will make it easier for your needle to go through.
Yeah.
If you want to try that. To me, it would be easier. I mean, I try to We do sustain injuries as artists.
Yes,
We
we
do.
do.
All artists across the board. We sustain injuries. And we keep going because of the art, the drive, you know. That's what, oh, I gotta show the audience the back of this one too. Like, so do you use a ruler and draw it, map it all out before you start attaching your materials?
Yes, I have lately.
Look at that, audience. They're all evenly spaced and symmetrical. You know which symmetry in Ochepi Shakoi thought and philosophy, because it models, the symmetry models balance, negative and positive, and then also what is above is also below. You know, and it is prevalent in our artwork too. And I think sometimes the outside world doesn't understand that our thoughts and philosophy of our ancestors also go into our artwork, you know? We think about that as artists, and when they want to cry around about how, oh, that price is too high. Really, when you see this stuff in person, I think with any Indigenous artist that does their traditional art forms in a contemporary style or traditional style too, like I said, the time, the thought, that all go into play before you even start your piece.
Yeah.
You know, laying out your materials, thinking about symmetry, thinking about design.
I think this one called Another Spots on it is one of my favorites because when I first created this one,
Oh, that's an old
yeah,
grandma paisley print.
yeah. When I created this, it was just the pink felt with the butterfly on it. And I became very frustrated because I didn't know what I was going to do with it. So what I did was I did my quill, and I just set it aside. I didn't want to become any more frustrated than I was at that time with it because I didn't know what to do with it. And my uncle, he passed years ago, but one night I said, you know, Uncle, if you can hear me, you know, come on, help me out here. And a couple of nights later, I had this dream about him. And he used to do a lot of art shows and stuff like that. So he was just it was, you know, he was no stranger to it. And he, in this dream, he called me and he invited me down to one of the art shows. And when I got there in this dream, he asked me to he said, bring all of your things. I was like, okay. So I don't know what I grabbed, but I know I grabbed this piece, and it wasn't finished. I was kind of embarrassed in my dream, you know. And I went and I just laid all my pieces down, and he was there, but he was like really young, you know. And there was this gentleman with him, and they were standing there, and he waved me over. So I went over to him, and he told me to put all my stuff out. So I did. I laid them all out like that, and that was one of the pieces. And I was going to hide it, but he grabbed it. And when he grabbed it, it wasn't the unfinished piece. It was actually this that he grabbed, the design of the bag, and it was already put together in the dream.
Really?
And he was holding on to it like that, and I was like, but that's. And I kept looking at it. I was like, what? There's something different about it. So it was his, you know what I mean? So the next day when I woke up, I went straight to it and I put it together the way that it was in
your dream. Man, that just gave me chills.
Yeah.
Like,
So
wow.
this is called Uncle's Help. So.
Very appropriate. Very appropriate. And see, our ancestors and our relatives are always trying to help us in some way or another, you know?
Yeah.
Oh,
Because I didn't know
the backs of these too. That's cool. So did you have those materials, those brass circles
No,
there?
nothing. It was just the plain pink with the butterfly on it. That was just it.
So-
Because I didn't know what to do with it.
So after your dream, did you go out and buy those, or were you
I
just
already had everything on
Were
hand.
you just
and,
like-
yeah, okay. And then I looked at it. I was like, okay, that's it. That's what was
that's
in my
what
dream.
was in your dream?
Yeah.
Man,
So
that's
this
cool.
is the one that he came through.
That's just hits the chante
It
that really
does.
hit like
Does
wow.
because he just like came back, made an appearance, was like,
Mhm.
because that's the one that he was holding on to. He wouldn't.
Mhm. And you were struggling. He knew you were struggling. And
Mhm.
oh, that's good. That's how I feel like when I get stuck. Well, what really got me back into my art group was when I left my former job, and it wasn't on good terms, and I was just feeling all these emotions. And then my grandmother passed away to COVID, and I was just like, what? But she would, she would always, if those of you who know me know, I have like these long acrylic pretty nails. My grandmother always had long nails, but they were her natural, and she always had them painted. But she always wore the most beautiful sets. She would always some women out in the community or whatever, they would need money, and she'd be like, beat me a set.
Mhm.
She always had earrings that matched her necklace, that matched her bracelet. Sometimes she'd have a ring. So when I got back into beading and trying to deal with all this grief, and that would just
Yeah.
kick in, like I think back to what my grandmother would wear. And to me,
Just showing inspiration from
Yep.
the past. It's like,
yep. And it would just, and then now it's just like, gee, I wish I could tell her, like, I don't know if I know I could tell her, but I think that I'm sure it's probably with your uncle too. Like, I just want to hear her say, oh, I love that. I
Mhm.
want that, or I want to wear that. So every time I make pieces, that's what I think of
yeah.
my grandmother's encouragement and be like pride, like,
Mhm.
wow, you
And
check,
that's,
wow, you made it,
that's how it felt when he held onto it. It was like, okay, then that's it. That's the one.
That's
So
nice.
there's just something. There's a connection there with that bag.
Yeah. I always feel a connection to all my pieces I make, and I want to keep them all, but I need the money too.
Well, that's another thing too, is that it's for me, it's more about getting all of that creativity
Mhm.
out of my
Yep.
brain, so that there's more room for
Other,
more, you know
right?
what I mean? So to me, it's not really about making a profit on it. It's more of just getting it out. I have to get it out of there so I can have room for more, because there's more creative energy inside of me.
That's one of the things Joelle and I talked about, because I was all like, your stuff is amazing. It's got to get out there. And I'm always trying to push her towards. She's like, but it's not about making money for me,
Yeah.
which I get. If I could keep all my stuff, but then I think about like, wow, I like
money's money.
you can't take. My
Yeah.
grandma used to say, I can't take it with me.
Mhm.
Can't take it with me when I go,
Yeah.
So I try to keep that in mind too. But for me, I think I like the thought of other people wearing my stuff with the
Yeah.
same pride that I had making it.
Yeah. Just
and I
seeing
wanna-
somebody hold your stuff is like, yeah, okay, I made it. If somebody
Yeah.
has my art, I don't know.
And
It's
like they love it as much as I love
Yeah.
making it, or how much
or if they're
love I
caring
put
for
into it. Yeah, caring for it. And
especially quill.
yeah, cool. Quillwork don't get wet. You can't get quillwork wet either.
Or in direct sunlight, or
Mhm.
just too arid, it might pop. So that's why they have so much quill work in storage a lot.
Yeah, you don't want to get quillwork cold. Well, even just cut beads too.
Yeah.
The glass. I use a lot of glass and crystals and cut beads in my art, and I tell people who have my stuff that don't get it wet, and just clean it with the Q-tip and some isopropyl alcohol. Don't use water. So
Use water.
that's kind of with quills too.
Mhm.
So even with your materials, if people, like if it gets a little dust on it, because I have it displayed, I would encourage them, frame it if you can, or encase it, or two, if you have to get the dust out, you're just gonna use a cotton ball or Q-tips and isopropyl
Like
alcohol.
dab it a little bit, but don't
Mhm,
just.
And gentle, like the materials are durable because our ancestors used them.
Yeah.
But in today's world, with all the chemicals and other elements, it does make them delicate.
Mhm.
You know, if anybody wants that tidbit of inside knowledge, but I even do that with my own work. It's just, and your stuff's so distinct. That's what I like about it too. Like I could probably see something and be like, oh, that's Joelle's.
Yeah.
You know, nice. It'd be not, you know, do you ever look like moving into the future? Do you ever think about teaching, doing quill work classes for, well, one, it would install, it takes youth who are willing to
Yes.
sit there and be patient.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm up for sharing whatever, because I can't hold that back. You know, I've looked for different, like for help
Mhm.
here and there, but I'm not really getting the help that, yeah.
We're cool with you. Anytime you reach out, and I, to the best of my knowledge, I will help you, because like I was telling you, I don't have the eyes anymore for, I know I don't look at my age, but I'm getting up there and my eyes are bad. They're like, I wouldn't, even my mom asked me, she said, why don't you get back into Quillwork? I'm like, are you going to pay for my LASIK? I told her, you pay for my LASIK there. But to me, it really makes me feel good to see up and coming artists doing things like this. Cause like I said, back when I was growing up in the 80s, even in the 90s, there were hardly anybody that did Quillwork. And to see people wanting to, our people wanting to put in that time and that effort and the
Yeah,
work
like if you
into
have it, give it. You know what I mean? If you know, then put it, you know, share it.
Yeah.
Just because I didn't have that. So, you know, if you want to know, ask me. I have no problem telling you, you know, how I do it. It's just that you know, you'll find your own style and stuff eventually.
Yeah,
So
yeah, exactly. Like I'll teach you the techniques,
Mhm.
and if you do it better than me, man, I'm all for that. And just, you know, I'm just showing you the techniques and the foundation.
This is what I know.
Yep, this is how I would do it. If you can find your way to do it, because that's what's gonna get you going.
So, yeah.
Just pick
If
it up.
you want to know, just ask.
Nice. Okay, let's see if we have any comments. Oh, we kind of went over time. Sorry, everyone. All right. So I didn't even know we were over time, people. I'm so passionate about the up and coming artists, especially when you're taking such a traditional form that has, you know, porcupine quill work was way before beads came into our culture.
Yes.
It's the original, to me, the original art form for women. And a lot of men do it now too, which is good. Like I said, I'm all for, you know, that's what has to keep culture going. That's what has to keep language and
That's what I was telling him.
our
too.
ways going is, you know, back in the day, because there were these protocols and it was a time where it was appropriate, but now it's vital that male or female, if they want to learn these things, we have to share it with them, you know. And for especially these times, like I said in previous shows, our youth have hard lives. And art forms like this, I think, would give them a sense of pride and a sense of like, someone is taking the time to show me this. They must care about me to show me that. And then later in life, they can use it as an income source, as a way of coping. You know, for me, when I sit down and start working on pieces, like the problem solving and that goes into my artwork also helps me outside
Yeah.
of like, okay, that stuff don't matter. You know, I can handle it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And then you just get into it. Like I can't explain it until you do it. So if you want to do it, you know, Racing Magpie is a good source. Joelle is a good source right here in Rapid City. And of course, I'm always willing to help anybody, you know, just not at midnight when you need to call me about a technique. That could wait till morning. I'm old. I get up early and go to bed early.
And I charge my dollars an hour too. So
Yep. I don't charge from like my knowledge is free. Like I said, it's about being a good relative, about and then the front of my mind is always about our youth. How are we gonna make a better world for them? How are we paving the world now for them? Because they are vital now. They have to keep all this moving forward.
yeah,
Because if they don't,
it's gonna
it
get
stops.
lost. Yeah.
It stops. And I think I'm older generation, and those are in my mind. And I just encourage everybody out there, you know, think about when I get up in the morning, my thought is, how can I help my people today in the capacity that I can? And that's part of being a good relative and part of our ways and our connection to our ancestors, you know?
Yeah.
And that's why we have Racing Magpie has these winter camp sessions too, because there's people out there like you that they have nowhere to learn this, but they could pull up this show in the future, look at your stuff and hear your story, and that will help them too.
Yeah. Yes.
So that's
Just carry
pretty cool.
around a magnifying glass if you don't
Yeah.
know, you know. So
That's just my mind-blowing thing for this weekend. Like, you taught yourself how to do this, and that just blows my mind. That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. Well,
and especially the blanket part. I just want to put that out there. You also brought up that blanket, you know, just if you see a porcupine on the side of the road, how you wrap it in an old blanket and then pull it.
mhm.
And that's one of the things that his dad asked me about. If I ever used a blanket, and I didn't know what he was talking about until that night that I saw you at my show and you brought that up. I was like, oh, okay, that's what he meant. That's what he meant. Not throw it on there, you know, as what you picture it to
Yeah,
be.
yeah.
I see a porcupine running around with a blanket on. No, but yeah, but that's what he meant, because we were talking about that. And you know, if it's dead, I mean, if it's deceased, you know, you just put your blanket on there or an old towel or something.
Old towel and old shirt, whatever you
There you
have,
go.
throw it on that
Pull it off
roadkill.
and you have
Pull it off. Get your quills out, put them in a box, keep doing that.
Yeah.
So if you don't quill and don't want to know how to quill, but you want to help struggling artists,
Yes.
and you see the roadkill, anything you have in your car, cloth, you throw it on that roadkill. If you don't want to touch it, pull them porcupine quills off.
Because they
Keep
will
doing that.
stick.
They will stick. Yep. Make sure you wear gloves. I don't know. I'm used to it. I'm just was used to getting poked and all that, but. And throw them in a shoebox and give it to people who will use it, and they'll do the rest. You know, that could be your little contribution. Also with porcupines, when my mom was trying to talk me into going back into Quillwork, there's a porcupine on her and her partner's ranch, and you can hear it at night or whatever. So her partner heard me talking, and he said, "Oh yeah, I'll just hang that porcupine up like that, and I'll do the blanket and get them quills off for you." I was like, "Really?" He said, "Yeah." I thought he was kidding, but he was serious, because there's a porcupine that has been around their ranch for years and years. And my mom's partner said he's huge. And he said, "Just let me know when it comes around, I'll do that." He said, "All I just take that pole and he hangs on to it and I put it up." I was like, "What?" He's like, "For real?" I was like, "All right." So there's another inside trick you can, if you're not scared of porcupines. Porcupines don't shoot their quills.
No, they don't.
When they feel like they're in to protect themselves, they'll stiffen up. When they stiffen up is when their quills stiffen up. Dogs come home with, dogs come home with porcupine quills because they're trying to get at that porcupine. The porcupine doesn't shoot. Porcupines are gentle, humble animals that are sent here to help us.
Yes.
Even though they're stinky. When you open them up, they're greasy. They're so greasy.
Yeah, they are.
But that's part of their protection skills too. So thanks everyone who stopped in to check out the show. Again, Joelle Follows the Road. What is your social media if people want to see some more of your stuff?
I'm on Facebook as Joelle Follows, and on Instagram as Works Quills 21. I don't keep a lot of my artwork on my pages. You may inquire. And I guess that's,
Yeah, just inbox her. Hopefully she'll be getting into more shows. I'm gonna give her that little push just to so people can come and check her work out. You know, you don't have to purchase it, although that would be nice, but it's amazing craftsmanship, artistry, that when you see it in person, it's just like, wow, like it's so wow, she created this, you know, it's pretty cool. So thank you for sharing.
thank you for inviting me. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, I was talking to her. Come on, you gotta get that, gotta get out there, Joelle.
Now
So
that I know where Racing Magpie is actually at.
yep. So Racing Magpie is down here. They're not downtown anymore. But thank you all for tuning in and checking out Joelle's show. So I'm putting to watch day you happy ksto. Have a good day, all my relatives. Yes. Oh, I want one of these. Oh.
We're off of the, oh, I got it.